Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Atwood. I'm a sales director for enablement within Salesforce.org. So I'm going to go a little bit quicker because I realize that I'm your next person between drinks. So that's a tough space to be in. So just a quick agenda. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself. A little bit about Salesforce.org because we're different than Salesforce.com. So a lot of people in the room may know Salesforce, but not Salesforce.org's. A bit of pros and cons, and how you can make a sales leader successful. And so I understand she's not in the room today, but I was talking to my colleague Tass from Salesforce as well, and she was explaining that we haven't really gotten into a little bit of the hiring. So the reason that I wanted to do this session was to talk about sort of alternative ways that you can have within your enablement team, alternative people. So I'm just curious, is anyone in the room, have they been a sales director before? Okay, good. So there are a few people. So you are the 4 people that are going to relate more. So I'm definitely happy for any feedback. So I joined Salesforce in 2007. So despite my American accent, actually I was born in Oxford, if you can't tell by my accent, and I've lived in the UK for about 12 years. When I joined Salesforce, it was a small company of about 20, I realize it's not small, but 2,500 people. Salesforce today is about 40,000 employees. So we're getting now into the crazy level, and we keep acquiring additional companies. But when I started, I was the first salesperson selling to our not-for-profit market. So we used to have an East and a West Coast AE, and that was it, two people. After about 10 years within a sales career, I moved into becoming a sales leader. And after 2 years as a sales leader, I moved into enablement. So what's been interesting about that, and one of the reasons why I wanted to move, is because it was a great opportunity as a sales leader to influence our sellers' behavior. And we're hiring at a phenomenal rate within Salesforce.org. So I would probably say 40 to 50% of our salespeople are less than a year tenure, if not higher. So those are crazy hot, those are crazy numbers. And one of the reasons we're, as I mentioned earlier, focusing on onboarding. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm frequent flyer. So Salesforce.org is, up until July, was a separate legal organization from Salesforce. So we're today the philanthropic arm of Salesforce.com. So we sell to the not-for-profit and education markets. We sell our technology. Nonprofits get 10 licenses of Salesforce at no cost, and the rest they buy from us. And that model's changing a little bit on the technical side, but the money gets reinvested back into the not-for-profit community. So for the most part, we're not making a profit off of our sales to nonprofits. The legal part of that is my disclaimer. It's changed since we've gotten acquired into being a publicly traded company. But we've got about 40,000 customers. So these are our 3 tenants. You might hear, if you hear one of our leaders talk about the 1-1-1 model. But what's interesting about this from an enablement perspective is that we've grown to becoming almost around a $250 million software company, within that. So, and I would say that what's interesting about that is that Salesforce.org has also grown to about 1,000 people. So that part of the organization is really vast. And we need to have those sellers have a conscious effort to be selling to nonprofits in not just the sales mind, as you really need to make sure the nonprofits are becoming successful using the software product. So you can't just sell to hit your revenue goals, because if you're selling a product to a nonprofit and they're wasting money, that's really bad for society. So within Salesforce.org, our enablement programs, and I'm happy to answer some more questions on this after, we break them up into onboarding and mastery. So there's just 2 different segments. So I work within the global mastery programs. I do spend a lot of time with onboarding, but my focus is around mastery. These are our core programs within Salesforce.org enablement. So we're focused around what we sell, how we sell, and do my job. So everything we do in front of our account executives should relate back to one of those 3. We really try to package everything into these programs, which I've listed, my skills for AEs and managers, and we continue to evolve our competency models for account executives and managers. We've branded this, which I quite like, Mastery Mondays. So every other week we do a different topic, either related to do my job, what we sell, or how we sell. Empowerment Digest is our monthly email newsletter. And sort of one of my favorites, I wanted to draw out something that you can take away is enablement in a box. So we have a lot of different sales leaders across the organization. So we pre-package things we want to do as enablement activities. And an example of this is value selling. So we have a value selling methodology. We do a lot of training around value selling, but we wanted to reinforce that message. We do something called value maps. And so we basically packaged up all the content so the sales leaders could deliver a value map training to their team. We tracked that they did it, and the managers that did it within their team meeting, but it was still on a topic that we wanted them to cover, but it was up to the sales leaders on how they wanted to deliver that program. We also do a Path to Ranger. I think we're moving this more to required badge of the month. So if anyone's familiar with Trailhead, so Trailhead is our Salesforce online learning platform, and you can actually do courses. So one of the bits that we were talking about earlier was on how we're designing that. So a course could have a variety of different trailheads. It could be listening to some videos. It could be doing some reading. So we package that up, but we do require that the account executives are doing a different trail every month at the same time. So I'm going to give you a little bit of spoiler. You should think about hiring sales leaders to your team. So the answer to this is yes. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the advantages, disadvantages, and some things to think about. So one of the advantages about bringing a sales leader to your team and hiring them into that role is that they really bring a set of skills related to sales techniques. So typically you'll have a sales leader that will have 5 to 10 years of sales experience, and that's something that when you're doing training and enablement to your teams, it's something that the account executives and the extended team will feel comfortable that that person can sell, that they can talk to customers, that they can be in front of prospects and feel comfortable in that way. And sales leaders are very comfortable with bringing, various resources in across the team. So we've spent a lot of time already today talking about bringing industry solutions in, bringing in sales leadership. And so that's a familiar operating environment for sales. And also very credible when talking to other sales leaders. So my personal anecdote on this is within Salesforce is I've been there for a very long time. When I say something is a good idea, people take me seriously because I've actually been that person that's closed the deal. I've been that person that's ran the team. So that really allows me to add that sales filter and curate that content into things that are more realistic for the team. And I think that this other sales leaders have this perspective that since I've been in their shoes, that I'm not wasting their time. And that goes well. So this is the good news. The challenges. It's very hard to move from a sales culture to an enablement culture. I still face this today. The question around, on-demand training is definitely something I face. I'm used to the sales culture, having done it for so long, where if you ask me a question, I'm going to give you that answer instantly or look to provide that sort of one-to-one response. The enablement hat that I should be wearing is, why are you asking this question? Is it scalable? Do other people need the answer to that same question? So if you had asked me that probably a few months ago, I would have been answering in one direction, and now I'm sort of moving in the other direction. But I think that's something that's definitely caused a lot of friction. I know when I joined our enablement team, because I'm used to being very one-to-one like that, and the rest of the team is very into that planning model. I would say that push and pull of tactical information is definitely a challenge. And I am particularly noticed, and I'm going to give some suggestions for improving this, but I was sort of weak around what the enablement team did in terms of building programs. So it's probably still my weakest area. So if you tell me that you want to build a course for somebody, I still need a lot of coaching. If you said, stand in front of a group of people and deliver that course, I'm not going to need that same level of coaching. So the program design and program management is definitely something that I would say is something that could be developed if you hire a sales leader. So some suggestions, I would suggest an onboarding program for your enablement role, even if it's just building out your goals and having that agreed with the sales leadership. So I think one of the challenges that we faced, in particular when I moved over, is that our leadership team within enablement has a deep enablement background. So they've been within enablement roles for 5 or 10 years plus. So they're thinking with that enablement hat on instead of the sales hat. And that's fine, but I think we just needed to have agreed a plan on the items that would make me successful as a sales leader moving into that enablement role. And one of the things that I would say, and I'm certainly calling myself out on this, is that I definitely have and still have gaps around project management. So the ability to manage and deliver a project or a program is something that a sales leader may be challenged on. So I'm volunteering my own weakness on this. But one of the solves for that is anyone familiar with Bob Pike? Bob Pike training? Oh, well, we love Bob Pike training at Salesforce. So I would suggest that everyone Googles Bob Pike and training. So they do a lot of courses in the US, but one of the things that I did was, and I think there's other solutions on how to do this here, but I just happened to do mine when I was in the US, is really getting training on learner-centered design early. So within probably the first 4 or 5 weeks of changing from sales to enablement is I took an all-week-long course around learner-centered design, and that started to change my mentality and change the way that I was perceiving the job. So I was stepping out of the sales role into the enablement role, but really getting some more information on instructional design, how to build a course, and how to, to think in that way. So I would say look to external training that you can pick around, use learner-centered design as one of the ways to get that sales leader into more of the enablement role. I'd also say identify the strengths of the person you're hiring in terms of promoting existing programs. So one of the things that we do a lot of continuous improvement on is operational excellence. So we have a lot of opportunity for salespeople doing a better job updating their opportunities, understanding what process items move deals to the next stage, how to do prospecting like we were chatting earlier. So these are usually strengths of a sales leader. So you can promote the agenda of enablement, that enablement perspective, using the sales leader's experience. So one of the things that's been good is that, for example, I've been doing a lot of our webinars for new hires around dashboards and reporting. So I have a lot of experience with my team on the dashboards that my team actually uses, things to look at on a sales opportunity. And so we're able to take that and put me into activities that are scalable using that experience. And I would just say, from a practical basis, teaching sales leaders how to build programs. So one of the things that I'm enjoying is I've got a really great mentor within our enablement team. So my colleague, Nicole DeVito, and my manager, Nina, both have very deep experience in terms of building programs. So we're in the process of looking at sales leader competencies. So we had built a competency framework within salesforce.org. Salesforce.com is spending some more time on this. So basically, I'm working with Nicole, who runs our onboarding program, to work on the new manager competencies. At the same time, it gives me some experience on building a fairly complex new program. But at the same time, I'm getting some mentoring and coaching from someone else in the enablement team with a lot of experience. And just sort of to recap, sales leaders provide really high credibility with training. So account executives trust sales leaders. I'm hoping for some feedback from some of the other sales leaders in the room. Acting as a trusted advisor. So I spend a lot of time coaching managers and coaching second-level managers. And that's worked very effectively because one of the reasons we're working on the sales leader training is we have a high level of new managers. Probably 40 to 50% of our managers are also new. So this is another good opportunity for us. And the last part, I think, is probably the most important, is the ability to complement a group of sales enablement professionals within the team. So what's interesting is that myself and another one of my colleagues has a lot of sales experience coming from a sales background. So we're a good mix, and our team is about, I don't know the exact count, probably between 7 and 10 people. We've just hired a couple of other people. So .org has a pretty small enablement team. Salesforce.com has a vast enablement team. So I think there's probably about 70 people in EMEA, and I'm not sure the numbers in the US. I'm sure it's a couple of hundred. So what's interesting about that is when you look at the skill set of that, and I wanted to draw an example. We did Strength Finders as a team. So if people haven't seen Strength Finders, that activity is good. It's a good book, and we all did it, and then we all basically presented back. So we did the Strength Finders exercise, and then we presented back as a team, and everyone had to go through their strengths. And it was really interesting because we are a diverse team, and I think that's been proven useful. And we will really continue to evolve as we do our planning and our roles and responsibilities into where the team has strengths and opportunities in terms of individual learning and development at the same time. So that's what I have for now, but I'm happy to answer any questions. I realize that I've covered a lot on the topic that's a little bit different. Are there some questions? Yes. Great.
Do you have an L&D team in Salesforce.org?
Yeah, so yes, and they're part of the U.S. So we're actually been rolling out, and I'm not interestingly enough, we were rolling out our own proprietary piece of software on this called Astro Course Tracker. So if you've seen Trailhead, which is publicly available, I'm not sure who's built Astro Course Tracker. I know that team lives within. There's like a tech and products kind of team within the team within the US, but Astro Course Tracker is what we're moving to. So that's where we're putting all of the content into something called Ask Astro, which is another piece of our own piece of tech. But basically, so it's that we can measure the content that people are consuming. So just to give you a more practical example of this is that when somebody takes one of the Mastery Monday, if they listen to a Mastery Monday course, they don't have to consume the class online. So we've integrated this in with GoToWebinar so that if you attend the webinar, you don't have to do the online course. But if you don't attend the webinar, then you get a link that you need to go into Astro Course Tracker, listen to the webinar, perhaps check a few other boxes off and consume a few other pieces of content, and then to be marked as complete.
The reason why I asked that is because I think a lot of us will agree here. We don't have huge sales enablement functions. So what I do is I leverage our learning and development team a lot. So while sales enablement focuses on the actual content and the value of what we're trying to get our sellers to do, we push the actual design of that learning module or course back to L&D. I've only recently started doing that and using that team better just because I have to. But I believe instead of learning these things, which are really difficult to do, like video-based learning and understanding how to do that effectively, if you have an L&D team, and most I think mid to enterprise organizations probably will, is push that back to them to actually design that course, but focus on the value that you're adding in that course.
It's funny that you asked because sort of one of my December things that I need to do. So there's actually a course creation content class built into Trailhead internally on that I need to do. Like there's like a light component and a heavy component. So a lot of our team has gone through the heavy component. I've been trying to avoid the heavy component into just the 3 to 4 hour kind of bit on this, but really are on building these courses. So Salesforce.com has this extended team, but a lot of their team has been going through this training on how to use, the internal software on building the courses. So I would say our goal right now is to be somewhere in between this. We're hiring a technology person within our team to focus on the tech, like the tech part of this, the loading of things into the system as courses. But it's interesting because it is a lot of time that we're spending on this. Sorry, this isn't me going on. We've moved from my slides. Are there some more questions?
I have one more question.
Sure.
Why did you move into enablement?
Yeah, I think it's because of the ability to influence the sales organization, to be honest with you. We're hiring a lot of new people. So, and a lot of new managers. So one of the things, I've been at Salesforce for, it'll be 13 years in March, and I want to ensure that we're balancing mission and metrics. So that's something that you wouldn't typically see if you asked a Salesforce sales leader. But I want to make sure that when we're actually pitching our products to nonprofits and we're having those conversations and we're still selling the large deals, that we're really doing so with a heart and still thinking about what the nonprofit needs. So, we teach value selling to our sellers. But there's more, if I'm working with Bernardo's or Great Ormond Street Hospital, like when I sell that software to them, there's an opportunity to change lives. So I think when you do a lot of coaching around, we were just spending a lot of time on onboarding into being a trusted advisor. So how do you teach that salesperson that you've hired that has a typical tech sales background? They might have been at Microsoft or Oracle, yet you want them to sit with the CIO of Greenpeace and feel credible, and the CIO of Greenpeace, feels that they're engaged within their mission, they're engaged within their product knowledge, they're engaged in the community. So I think we've got to go a little bit of a step further within our salespeople so that there's, the heart element that not only comes with good sales processes. Is anyone hiring sales leaders or thinking about hiring sales leaders? And yes, do you want to share anything?
We took a similar approach. We brought in someone that was previously a sales manager into enabling our sales, specifically our account executive team.
Would you say the challenges that I talked about are similar or different challenges?
Yeah, I think one thing that we're thinking really hard about that if you look at what a competency model or competency framework is, I mean, you can hire people from a bunch of different backgrounds, and I think for ours, we like kind of having a diversity of experience. But the experience that a sales manager is going to have coming in is going to be really different than someone that came from like instructional design or L&D, and so you have to figure out how to set that person up for success by giving them the skills that they maybe don't have naturally from their background. So I think having a competency model for the enablement team is really important.
Yeah, we've been trying to build this out. So like our VP of enablement, Rupal Shah, who actually spoke at the San Francisco conference, she's got a really strong look at how to deliver the metrics and looking at building out the team. So I think and she identified that we had a gap interestingly enough, on the tech and products side. But it's good to hear that you have had the same experience. Were you in a more of a developing, like we have a lot of new hires, so one of the reasons to have a sales leader was because they're instantly credible with the sales team? Is it similar?
Yeah, instantly credible with the sales team, and even more so the sales managers. And so we're thinking a lot about manager enablement as well. And so if you want to go from just enabling frontline to also enabling the managers, having someone that's previously been in that manager role is like, almost critical.
Yeah, we're building out. So we're building out right now within sales. I should say this is the Salesforce that I'm contributing. There's a lot of we's at Salesforce. So luckily, the other piece of that is actually I would look to have Salesforce. I'm looking at Heidi, who used to work in Salesforce enablement, but we would really look to the Salesforce enablement side to use as much content and as much programs as we can within salesforce.org, and then figure out where those gaps are. What's interesting though is the two of us in parallel, before we got acquired, had been working on like the manager competencies, very, very similar. So we came up with very similar results. But now we're trying to look at merging that and how we would operate, and what are the gaps. So that to your question, I think that really looking at the ethical approach to selling is something within the nonprofit and education market that's particularly strong. But it's quite interesting, and I think it's not always do managers see enablement as a role that they might be interested in switching into, which is probably like another longer conversation. Yes?
I fully subscribe to everything you said. I'm also coming from sales and from SAP. Tomorrow I'm going to do the presentation from the learning perspective. But what we do with sales, 50% of our self-learning experts are from sales. And we face the same problem that you described. We are not instructional designers experts. But what we try to do is first, as you mentioned at the beginning of your workshop, we try to simplify content so that it's acceptable and digestible for sales, because there are very small content of information that they can swallow. The second thing we do instead of recruiting now, we are just doing internship. So people can come 6 months in our sales learning environment. They enjoy it, but then they go because you cannot compete on a salary level. So the guys come, they see, they're interested, they stay. But honestly, a real sales guy is driven by money. The people who come to us are more consultative sales guys, and therefore they are happy to change career. The sales guys will never, from a salary perspective, be satisfied.
That's a different challenge. Yes, I certainly appreciate the commission versus the model around that. But it's good to hear that you've experienced the same thing. But one thing is, I think because we're a small team, like we're definitely I need to step up, and I'm even still looking for more opportunities around. I was looking at instructional design more instructional design courses just to beef up my own knowledge of that. But it's really important, I would say, that if you're going to hire a sales leader, is honestly just agree that there's going to be a ramp up period, and they're not going to understand how to do that instructional design, course design, program creation to the level that you might expect as an enablement professional, probably within the first year, but maybe that 6 to 9 month kind of period. So I think just having honest expectations, but in the meantime, I think you can redirect your salespeople into things. I find that one of my strengths is getting consensus from groups pretty quickly, actually. So if I sit down with the 9 sales leaders, and what's interesting is I'm quite fortunate that I actually get a lot of time with our leadership team. So we do a lot of leadership and planning activities, and I'm always invited to the table, which I definitely appreciate. And I think that somebody was saying earlier about enablement covers everything. So if you sit through one of our management meetings, everyone likes to say that we can solve their sales problems with enablement. So at least I'm there to deflect to the practicalities of that. Great. Any final questions? Oh, and just a shout out because Tass is doing from Salesforce as well, is going to talk about onboarding tomorrow. So where I'm focused on the mastery, so, somebody like Tass is focused on also on the onboarding. Perfect. Well, thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate it. Thanks.